This is Father Jonathan Meyer, and I have amazing questions and then some answers about the Papal Conclave and all things involving the Papal Conclave. And these are just questions that have been submitted to me, and I'm just going to give you a great answer. So the first question is where does the word Vatican come from? Very interesting. Most people don't know this, but the word Vatican predates Christianity about 500 to 900 years. That's right. The term or the word Vatica predates Christianity. There was an Etruscan settlement 500 to 900 BC that was on the west side of the Tiber River. So what happened is that St. Peter was, excuse me, St. Peter is buried in the Vatican cemetery on the west side of the Tiber River. And that's why the Vatican is located where it is, because the early Christians insisted that a church be built over his actual remains. So we're focusing on the Vatican. What is the Vatican? The Vatican is the place where St. Peter was buried after he was crucified upside down. Second question, what does the word conclave mean? Conclave comes from conclavis, which means with keys, conclavis, with keys. Next question, why are the cardinals secluded during the conclave? Why do we lock them in? We have a conclave so that there's no outward influences, no political influences, no financial influences. No one is trying to persuade the cardinals. They are in there to vote according to their conscience, according to where they believe God is leading them. How many popes have there been? Right now, there's been 266. Hopefully, there'll be 267 in the next few days. What is the Sistine Chapel? The Sistine Chapel is where the voting takes place. It was built in 1473. And then Pope Julius II was the one who insisted that Michelangelo paint the ceiling, which was a 4-year process from 1508 to 1512. If you've never seen the movie Agony and Ecstasy, watch it. Agony and the Ecstasy. Great film about the painting of the Sistine Chapel. It's named after Pope Sixtus the Fourth. Pope Sixtus the Fourth. Side note from Father Meyer, if I was ever made Pope, which I'm not going to be, but if I ever was, I would call myself Pope Sixtus, because there's been a Pope Sixtus the Fourth who the Sistine Chapel was named after. There's been a Sixtus the Fifth, which means that if I became Pope Sixtus, I would be Sixtus the Sixth, which would just be awesome to hear the whole world try to constantly say Sixtus the Sixth. So, anyways, but that's a total. Anyways, what is St. Peter's Basilica? St. Peter's Basilica is the church that has been built upon the very bones of St. Peter. So directly below the altar of the principal altar, the main altar, the altar where the Pope celebrates Mass in St. Peter's Basilica, he is standing on the very tomb of St. Peter himself, and he is the successor of St. Peter. What is the Room of Tears? The Room of Tears is the room the Pope goes into directly after being elected by his brother cardinals. He goes into a room called the Room of Tears. There's 3 white cassocks, there's shoes, there's all the attire that he's going to put on as the new Pope, but it's also the last place, it's the first place is he's really by himself. There'll be a tailor there that will kind of get him help dressed, but it's believed to be the place where the Pope really kind of begins to grasp the fact that he has the weight of the world on his shoulders, and so it's called the Room of Tears. Who are the Swiss Guard? This is an awesome question. The Swiss Guard is a military unit responsible for protecting the Pope and the Vatican. It's one of the oldest continuous military organizations in the world, dating back to 1506. 1506, by St. Julius. St. Julius is the same one who had Michelangelo design the Sistine Chapel. And did you know that Michelangelo, the famous artist, Sistine Chapel, the Pietà, David, he also designed the Swiss Guard's uniforms. So like when you're like, yo, those are totally drip. That was Michelangelo's decision. They played a crucial role in defending the Vatican on May 6, 1527. I'm actually filming this today on May 6, 2025. Rome was being sacked, and the Swiss Guards defended. There were 189 guards, and 147 of them died. 147 of them died protecting our Holy Father and the Vatican. There was Pope Clement VII that was rescued and taken to Castel San Angelo. Does the new Pope have to be elected from the cardinals? And then how many times have there been a non-cardinal Pope? The new pope does not have to be elected from the cardinals, and there's been 6 times that there's been a non-cardinal pope who's been elected. The last one was in 1378, Urban VI, Pope Urban the Sixth in 1378. How long does a conclave last? Well, the longest conclave ever was 2 years and 9 months back in 271. 2 years and 9 months. There was a lot of political infighting among the cardinals, which ultimately led to the election of Pope Gregory X. To expedite the process, the cardinals were locked in, and they began to reduce their rations, the amount of food they were allowed to eat. There were even rumors of people beginning to remove parts of the roof from the outside. Since 1900, the longest conclave was in 1922. It took 5 days. The shortest papal conclave was in 1939, and it lasted only 2 days, and it was Pope Pius XII that was elected. How many non-Italian popes have there been? Out of the 266 popes, a significant majority, 213, have been from Italy. However, there have been 53 non-Italian popes throughout history. From France, there are 16. From the Byzantine Empire, 5. Germany, 6. And then other regions. The election of John Paul II in 1978 was the first non-Italian pope in 455 years. That's a really big deal. But then since John Paul II, we've had Ratzinger, Benedict XVI from Germany, and Bergoglio from Argentina. Does every cardinal vote? Of the 252 cardinals, they do not all vote. Only 133 are voting. You have to be under 80. You have to be 80 years old or younger the day before the Pope dies. There was actually a cardinal who turned 80 the day the Pope died. He can't vote. The legislation is you have to be 80 the day before, so a full day before the Pope dies. And then there are some electors that are not coming. They're eligible, so there's 135 that could vote, but there's only 133 that are expected to actually be locked into the conclave. By the way, if a cardinal elector is not present when they lock you in, they can actually be admitted in. If they're late due to travel, they can actually be admitted in. That's actually part of the legislation, the laws of the conclave. Are there any age restrictions? Yes, you must be 80 the day before the Pope dies. Can a cardinal refuse to be part of the voting process? He can. He can just not show up. That's pretty simple. Who decides which cardinals are in the running? The media. Cardinals are actually vow and make a promise of secrecy, so they are not to be speaking about these things. They can speak in general, we're looking for, someone who's going to continue on the faith and someone who's going to continue to ensure the validity of the sacraments, but cardinals are not out there leaking information. So it's really just all speculation from the outside. And clearly, once the doors are locked, we would have no idea what's going on because there's no communication with the outside world. How many times a day do the cardinals vote? Will we see voting results as they go along on social media? Will the cardinals be posting? So they vote 1 time on day 1, and then 4 times on the following days, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. They do that for 3 days, and they take a whole day of rest, of prayer, of silence. They'll have someone do some preaching, and then they'll continue voting 4 times a day, every day. So the first vote will be cast the first day in the conclave in the evening, right after the doors are locked. That'll give people an idea of where people are at with their discernment, and then things will go pretty rapidly after that. How do they vote? Is there a ballot, or do they just write down a name? Do they do it verbally? So there are white cards, and it has pre-printed on it, this is who I am voting for, and then the cardinal will write the name of a brother cardinal or someone outside who's not in the conclave, and then those are all put into what's called an urn. It's like a big bowl of sorts with a lid, and they say a prayer as they put the vote in, and then it's all done anonymously, so you don't know what your brother cardinals have put in, but then the ballots are all read out loud, one by one, So as they're being read out, people are able to, all the other cardinals know and can have a tally sheet to see who will eventually get the 2/3 which majority, which I believe is right around 89 cardinals. Can an elected pope refuse the position? Yes. And if he does reject it, then they will automatically just go right back to voting. There can't be a tie because it's a 2/3 plus 1 majority. What's the significance of the white and the black smoke? The black smoke means there is not an election. They voted, but it wasn't 2/3. White smoke is that they did get to 2/3, and then in most likely about a half hour to 45 minutes, the Pope would be on the balcony at St. Peter's Basilica. In the early days, they would put a tiny little handful of wet straw and burn it with the ballots, and that's what would create the black smoke. Now they use chemicals to make it very, very clear what's white and what's black. Who picks the Pope's name? Does it have to be approved by anybody? Nope. The Pope chooses his own name. It doesn't have to be approved by anybody because he's the Pope. And we choose names because Peter had his name changed. Peter was Simon, had his name changed from Simon to Peter. This is the father of all of Judaism is Abram, who had his name changed from Abram to Abraham. So the changing of names is a very biblical notion and fulfilled there in the papacy. Who controls the process? Right now, the Camerlingo is in charge of getting things ready. The Camerlingo is the one who authenticated the death of the Pope, sealed the papal apartments, crushed the ring. But then once the conclave begins, the dean of the College of Cardinals runs the conclave and makes sure that all of the rules are followed. The dean of the College of Cardinals is actually over the age of 80, so he cannot go in. So then it's the most senior member of the College of Cardinals, which is Cardinal Pietro Parolin. He is currently the one who will be making sure that the rules are followed. And then I mentioned the Camerlingo a few moments ago, but he's the one who ensures the Vatican city-state keeps running. It is a country. It's a country that has to keep running, so he is in charge of running the country in lack of the Pope. Everything is done consultatively with the cardinals. So these are all the questions that were submitted to me. I hope you found them interesting. And let's pray for the election of a new Pope who will lead, guide, and protect Holy Mother Church. Amen.